Welcome to the Story of Cooking. I'm Sarah Nicholas.
This season we're filming in the heart of the Shenandoah Valley.
I'm here at the Natural Bridge in Natural Bridge, Virginia. And now we're in the kitchen. Godfrey, what you got cooking? To the berry knocker.
Berry knocker.
Welcome to the Story of Cooking. I'm Sarah Nicholas. We're here at Wade's Mill in Rafine, Virginia. Let's go inside and take a look. So now we're here with Georgie Young. She and her husband Jim own and operate Wade's Mill. So Georgie, tell us a little bit about what Wade's Mill is, what it does, and the history behind it.
Well, it's a wonderful, wonderful mill, of course. It was built in approximately 1746, although the deed did not get registered until 1750, by a man named Joseph Kennedy, who was an Ulster Scot, which I think is kind of fun with that name. And he came over here. He was illiterate, but brilliant, and he built several mills, this one being the one that has lasted. One of the fun things was that when we came and bought the mill and got going, we dug up the parking lot to extend our septic system and found the quarry. So all the rocks were in all these stones, and these stones date to 1750.
Wow.
Are original to the property, which made a huge difference in terms of cost and efficiency. The basement was big because that was the pigsty.
I know. I wanted you to say that. I think that's very funny.
They dropped all the corn leavings down to the basement, and were able to take care of them.
So what are we standing next to here?
We're standing next to, that's the flywheel. That goes at the same rate that the wheel outside does. Now that wheel is 21 feet. The original wheel that Joseph Kennedy had would have only been 13 feet. And it would have been wooden. And the power for the whole thing is from the stream that's outside, which is very unusual. And about a mile up, we have a dam, and the water courses down and over, and same source, same way of doing it. Now it goes through a pipe, and it's all gravity fed because the source of the water is higher than where it came out.
Makes sense.
This is one of my favorite pieces of equipment. Mr. Wade wrote a letter to the guys when they were putting in the new 21-foot wheel, and said, just remember, I'm a poor miller, and please reuse everything you can. This is a cast iron wheel that dates to very early, and it has wooden pegs. And let's go upstairs and look at our barrel packer, which is also very old.
Great, let's do it.
We're here at our barrel packer, which is a wonderful old piece of equipment that they use. The flour came in from here, the rollers panded it down, and then it finished, and you could shoot it out the front door because there's a hole in the front of the building that the barrels were taken down by. All the other equipment up here is where this is the workspace. There are 2 electric stones. There's a barrel of wheat, a huge bin of wheat. And we do wheat, rye, corn, semolina, buckwheat, and it's all stone ground.
So I heard a vicious rumor that you are thinking of retiring. Is that correct?
Yes. That's why I have the millstone around my neck. I want to get rid of it. We would love to find somebody who would want to run the mill as we have, because it's a wonderful historic property that has been in continual use since 1746.
Yeah, and it's definitely unique. There's not many working mills like it left, so
Right.
it would be a
Right.
great purchase for someone.
Right, and it is a commercial mill.
Right.
It can produce for big commercial customers, which is unique.
Thank you so much, Georgie. Thank you for the tour. Now let's head back to the kitchen and use some of these products that were made right here at Wade's Mill. We're here in Georgie's kitchen and we're going to cook up some grits recipes from her famous Wade's Mill's grits. I'm going to let you start by making the grits because we need grits for 2 of the 3 recipes. And you have some tips for us, right?
I do. We're going to make grits with a slurry, which is something that we have always, that I learned from a cooking class from some ladies from Richmond. And they said that the best way to make grits is to make a slurry, which is to add cold water to your grits before you add it to the hot water. That way you don't ever have any lumps when you're finished. So I'm going to start by putting a teaspoon of salt, which is what you can fit in the palm of your hand, a little bit. And I learned this trick from Mary Randolph, who is the chef extraordinaire from the 1700s. Lived in Richmond, wrote a wonderful cookbook, and don't get too wound up about how much you put in any ingredients in any recipe. Remember, when these recipes were invented, they used their hand for measuring teaspoons. They used a teacup, and it depended on what teacup and how sized. So even though it's important, this business of having to level stuff off is silly. Now we're going to add...
And it's a great tip to not have chunky grits because even if you go to fine dining places, you still get those lumpy grits.
Right.
It just doesn't taste as good.
So here's the trick to make it not ever be lumpy. This is a slurry. This is cold water that you put your grits in to start with. And after you've got your slurry made, you pour it into the boiling water, and it will be a miracle because you will find that you don't have lumpy grits.
So you have to just keep stirring it until all the water gets soaked up.
It does take a few minutes, so we can move on to talking about the...
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about what I'm doing. So this is not a Wade's Mill recipe. It's a recipe inspired by Wade's Mill's grits. And I'm a sucker for pie, being a Southern girl, and I'm a sucker for bacon and maple syrup. So I combined grits, bacon, and maple syrup to make this pie. It's going to be a ½ a cup of grits, and to that we're going to add a stick of butter, which she will do in a second for me. So while we're waiting on the grits, I'm going to go ahead and mix my dry ingredients, which is a lot of sugar, 3/4 cup of sugar, and 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Whisk that together. And it's amazing how this actually turns out. Once it's baked, it actually is not what you would think of as a grits pie. It's actually very creamy and velvety and custard-like. All right, those are our dry ingredients. We're going to crack 3 eggs. And these are local eggs. The theme today is local, which is always better. Right, Georgie?
Absolutely. We have local syrup, local eggs, and local flour.
Should have used a bigger bowl for this. Okay, so you whisk the eggs and put those into your dry ingredients. Stir that together, and then the last, no, not the last, one of the last ingredient is buttermilk. That's also a very Southern thing. And a teaspoon of vanilla. And we'll just eyeball it, right, Georgie?
Absolutely.
All right, so those are our ingredients for the pie other than the grits. It's really simple.
Do we need the grits now?
We need a ½ a cup of grits.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're gonna add the ½ a cup of grits to the egg mixture, but we want them to cool a little bit before we do. So let's put them in this bowl. And to the grits, we're going to add a stick of butter. Do you have a spoon, Georgie?
I do.
I don't want to stick my finger in these hot grits, but we will go ahead and stick the butter in. Scrape all that out. And we have the oven preheating at 350 for the pie.
We do.
It's a little noisy.
It is very noisy, unfortunately.
It's a good convection oven, though. All
Yes.
that air moving around makes that noise.
Exactly.
Okay, so we want the butter to melt. We'll let that sit for a second. Let that cool down. Okay, looks like the butter has melted and it's cooled off a little bit, so we're going to slowly add it to the egg mixture. You don't want scrambled eggs. That doesn't make for a very good custard. Okay, mix that together, and then Georgie, would you mind measuring me a half a cup of your very own maple syrup from Wade's Mill?
Yes, from Southernmost Maple.
Another
And,
local ingredient.
Yeah, in
That's good enough. Just pour that right in there.
Bowler, Virginia, and it is the most southernmost maple producing place in America.
That's good. That's enough. Oh, really?
Yeah.
In America.
I
Oh,
think
southernmost.
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, doesn't Vermont have that covered?
Oh, they do. But they make wonderful maple syrup in Virginia.
Yeah. They make wonderful everything in Virginia, Georgie. All
That's
right.
true.
So that's it for the pie. We're just going to dump it into the pie crust. And I was lazy and did not pre-make my pie crust. This is just a thawed store-bought pie crust, but you are welcome to make your own pie crust if you want. I'm going to put this in a 350-degree oven for about 30 minutes. And while that is baking, Georgie is going to show us 2 of her famous Wade's Mills recipes. So Georgie, you're going to start with your creamy cheese grits, correct?
Right. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about grits because I think it's important to know that lots and lots of people think they don't like grits because all they've ever had are the packaged, you know, pablum type.
I introduced my New York City in-laws to grits.
Well,
I couldn't even find them in a grocery store up there. They only
Yeah.
have the quick cook kind of. They're not as good.
exactly. I introduced my former son-in-law to him. He said, I don't eat grits. And I said, well, try these cheesy, creamy grits and see what you think. He said, wow, they're fantastic. We even used to sell them to a restaurant in Brooklyn, New York, which is kind of fun. And as people came out from the restaurant, they would say to the owner, how am I going to go back to Alabama and say the best grits I ever had were in Brooklyn, New York?
Easy.
All right, so what we're doing is we've made the grits. Now we're going to add the cream, add the cheese first so that it gets nicely melted by the hot grits. And then
And what kind of cheese did you use?
I used Colby from this wonderful, wonderful neighbor of mine.
Also local, yeah.
Meadowview Farm, and Meadowview Farm is fabulous. She produces so much cheese, it's ridiculous. They started out as a dairy farm.
Mountain View Farm, right?
Mountain View.
Yep.
And now they produce almost exclusively cheese. Really yummy local cheese. All right, so now we're going to add the cream to our creamy cheese grits and mix it up and then let it cook a little bit so that the cheese and the cream get absorbed.
That's a really simple recipe too.
It is. The biggest part of the recipe is the slurry. And that goes for making polenta or grits.
What kind of cheese would you not recommend using for grits?
Well,
Something that melts really easily, obviously.
I wouldn't use brie or, you know, creamy cheeses. I probably wouldn't use gorgonzola, although I think it would be wonderful, but I wouldn't.
That would be very interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't just because I'm partial to my local cheese.
Of course, of course. Well,
But-
when you have local cheese like this, who wouldn't be?
We finished stirring, and we're going to leave the grits on very low heat and occasionally stir them just to make sure everything gets mixed and is cooked enough.
Okay.
And now we're going to move to our buckwheat crepe, known in France as galette. And the fun thing about buckwheat is when you go to the Whole Foods whole grain site, buckwheat is one of their favorites. The problem is it's neither a wheat nor a grain
Which is contradictory to its
or
name.
whole,
Yep.
because it's actually in the rhubarb family, and it's a seed head. And if you ground up the whole thing and ate the seed head, you would choke to death because it's a seed head. But it is phenomenally healthy, wonderfully tasting, and all over Eastern Europe and France and Germany.
Yeah.
It is very popular, as well as Japan. Soba noodles are made
Yeah,
with
and it's
buckwheat.
gluten-free too, which is a very popular
Yes,
thing nowadays.
exactly.
Even though it has wheat
Exactly.
in the title, it does not have wheat. It's gluten-free.
It's gluten-free.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of wonderful things you can make with buckwheat, besides these delicious crepes. These crepes are generally served in a savory fashion. You can also make them with a sweet filling. You can use the buckwheat crepe as the base of a wonderful tart, all kinds of different things.
So this is actually a really easy recipe as well. It's just buckwheat flour, 1 egg, 1½ cups of water, and 1/2 cup of milk, right?
That's right. And you let it sit in the refrigerator for an hour, and then you bring it out,
And
as we are
what's
right
the
now.
reason for letting it sit for an hour?
Because then all the flour gets absorbed and the flavors are together. So
And it's a real art to cook crepes.
you know what
I
we
cannot do them
forgot?
very well. They have to be wafer thin so you can roll them. She just added butter to her, more butter to her grits. So we got butter, cheese, and milk. Can't be bad.
All right, for the crepe, we get the pan hot.
And you're not using a non-stick skillet to do the crepe?
No,
Oh.
I am not.
So you must be really good at it.
I'm not a major fan of non-stick.
Crepe
It's
is the
just
only
never
thing
been.
that I use non-stick for because I'm a disaster. I can never get it off the pan.
We butter the pan. That's key, so it doesn't stick.
Okay.
And we're going to let it get nice and hot. And then we're just going to put in a little bit, much less than you think you
You're
need,
just coating the bottom of the pan.
because you want it
barely.
as thin as possible. So you kind of stir it around,
And it'll cook really, really fast too because it is so thin.
and you'll know it's done when you can actually lift it up. If you can't lift it up, it's not done.
Okay, that's a good tip. I jinxed you. I jinxed Georgie. You can do it. Okay, it will taste good regardless of how it looks.
Yep.
Oh, perfect.
It's a little less than perfect, but once you do it a couple of times, you get in the swing of things and can do it better. I think maybe our pan wasn't
It's like
quite
pancakes. You
hot
always
enough.
sacrifice the first one. The first one never looks like you want it to look, just like pancakes.
So we're going to put it over here.
Smells
and work
good.
on- Yep.
Yeah, hotter is better. Stick less.
This may be at the
This
point
was
of
my
being
toughest
too-
exam in the French Culinary Institute. We had to make crepes for a midterm. I passed. That's all I can say. By the skin of my teeth, because crepes are hard to do. It's an art.
It is, and I think as you're doing them, you notice that it gets easier with each one that you do.
Absolutely.
All right.
Getting it.
This one's going to be perfect, she says.
Oh, that one is perfect.
You want it to have this nice brown look. All right, and then we will show you how to put together the crepe for what we are going to do next. And I've just turned off the grits because we don't want them to get overcooked or stick to the pan.
The word of the day, Georgie's perfect. Okay.
And there's our lovely pancake.
All right, so now we're gonna put the filling in the pancake, again, or the crepe, again with local cheese.
Local cheese
from
for
Mountain
sure.
View Farm.
And the different things that you can do to put in a filling of this, it's a wonderful vegetarian dish. You could make a wonderful vegetarian mix and put it in. This one is using prosciutto from Folks Run Grocery. Folks Run Grocery can't call it prosciutto because they're not from Italy.
Italian.
But so they call it thinly sliced ham. But it is absolutely sublime, and you can tell by the color.
Yes.
And this
And
is
I have it
looks
on
like
good
ham.
authority from my husband who's half Italian that it tastes just as good as Italian prosciutto.
Well, I had some visitors to the mill who were from the Italian embassy, and they finished 2 packages before they left the mill.
There you go.
Because they said, this is the first real prosciutto I've tasted since I've been out of Italy.
Excellent.
So then we put them in a pan.
I hear the oven's beeping, so perfect timing on the crepes, right?
Right. And we will fill these up and put them in the oven, and then we will come back and have our lunch.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Georgie. We have all of our stuff ready to go, and Georgie and I are going to taste this southern masterpiece, right?
Right.
Do you want to serve up? I'll work on the pie, because I have something to tell you about the pie as well. It's not complete. We actually like to top it with bacon and sour cream, whipped cream that is sweetened with just a little bit of sugar or vanilla, whichever you prefer. So we're going to do that as well. It makes the pie even more delicious. And the bacon, of course, complements the maple syrup that's in the pie. Just like that. All right, let's just eat off the same plate, Georgie.
Absolutely.
We're all friends here.
Indeed.
See how the pie actually looks very custardy? You wouldn't think that with being grits.
This is the buckwheat.
So just to remind you
Correct.
again, all these recipes just have, what, no more than 4 ingredients. They're super simple. They're all local, made with local cheese, local grits, local eggs, which makes it even better. Did you try my pie, Georgie?
I'm going to try this
The
first.
grits are delicious too. Ah,
That's a little harder.
Use my
We need
hands.
a knife.
really, really good. And I love the salty prosciutto as well. And it would be really excellent if you put some sort of cheese sauce over it. So Georgie and I are going to continue to enjoy this wonderful southern feast. Thank you, Georgie, for sharing your wonderful recipes with me.
Thank you for having me.
It was a delight. Thank you for joining me on this story of cooking. I'm Sarah Nicholas, along with Georgie Young. Until next time, keep the story going.
Georgie.